Cheers, everyone. So as I mentioned in my last video, I'm going through kind of a Swedish melodic death metal phase. And on top of the other bands I mentioned, I'm really getting into Scar Symmetry. Now, a big reason I haven't listened to some of these bands before is because they've been around for quite a while and they have like a large back catalog and they have personnel changes, and it's kind of hard to know where to go in. And with Scar Symmetry, I've been really getting into the album Holographic Universe. I think it was the last album from their previous singer, but man, is it absolutely amazing. Now, I'm still going through their whole catalog, but this one I'm kind of stuck on because it's so great. Perfect balance between clean and harsh vocals. The guitar solos are absolutely unbelievable. So if you haven't checked it out, check it out and tell me in the comments if there's another album I should definitely check out. Now, this is technically my As I Lay Dying, let's talk about it video. I don't really know a name for this because this is like one of my normal series. It's mainly me trying to figure out what I think about the whole situation. Now let me preface this by saying it's not meant to convince anybody of anything. Everybody's entitled to believe whatever they want, and I think in the modern age of Me Too movement and cancel culture, it's something that we're going to be coming to terms with for a while. And I'm mainly making this video for myself to try and figure out where I stand on all this. Now, while I'm a strong supporter of Me Too movement and these dirtbags gotta go, at what point do I start to forgive my favorite artists of all time, and suddenly they come out and saying things. In the metal community, we haven't really seen a lot of it. You have younger bands, like there's a lot of the deathcore bands for some reason, have been accused of different things, a few different bands here and there. But think about it. You mean to tell me that, what if Ozzy Osbourne comes out, Ozzy Osbourne did some really shady stuff, or the members of Metallica? I mean, we know the culture of sleeping with as many women as possible. Don't check the ID. Has been around forever. It's only a matter of time before we have to start figuring out what we support, what we don't support. And even though As I Lay Dying isn't technically part of the Me Too movement, it's quite different. That's what I'm going to go over in this video. I think there is a connection there. Now, the reason I'm using As I Lay Dying in this as an example on this, because I have a kind of a personal connection with the band. We all have personal connections with the music we listen to for whatever reason, especially bands that we got into when we were going through puberty, in high school. They formed like a imprinted in our brains that time period. Now, As I Lay Dying released Shaped by Fire last year, and it was one of my favorite albums released. But if you had asked me the day it was released, hey, what do you think about As I Lay Dying? I would say, oh, that reminds me, I need to get all my As I Lay Dying stuff and burn it. I've been meaning to do that. No, I haven't burned it yet, by the way. But basically, that's the shift I went over the period of a year, from hating the band to this album being one of my favorite releases. So how did that happen? How did I make that transition from hatred to absolutely loving their newest release? Well, let me take you back. As I mentioned, we kind of attached to bands when we were younger. And for me, teenage me, it was 2003, I believe. I was kind of living out in the middle of nowhere. I just moved to a new town. I didn't know anybody, and I had broken up with a long-term girlfriend, as long-term as you could have a girlfriend when you're a teenager. And I was kind of in a low place, and I had started really getting into more extreme metal. We all in the South growing up, we all knew Metallica, Pantera, and stuff like that, but I had started listening to Hatebreed and Slipknot. Now I may get the dates mixed up, so forgive me. But when I found As I Lay Dying on the first album, Frail Words Collapse, it immediately attached itself to me. It had awesome riffs. It was a little lacking on the solos, but it had amazing breakdowns, which everybody loved back then. And it really, people forget, As Lay Dying traditionally didn't have a lot of clean vocals. I mean, the newest release has a lot of clean vocals, but traditionally it's not. It's mainly Tim who has and has always had, in my opinion, one of the best screams in all of metal. And I don't know how you could argue that point. And another thing is, for a teenager, it's easy to understand why someone would get attached to As Lay Dying, because basically they're not writing traditional death metal music. It's basically love songs. You know, it's about being away from the person you love and, you know, being heartbroken, and it's really sappy stuff. But the teenage me really fell in love with it, and I remember that year, 2003, maybe a little 2004. I would go to every As Lay Dying show that came to Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas. I was there. I was introduced to a lot of great bands. Actually, my girlfriend at the time, the new one, about the time I met, started listening to As Lay Dying, who's now my wife, by the way. One of our first dates was an As Lay Dying show, and interestingly enough, the opening band was the Black Dahlia Murder. And as a little aside, Black Dahlia Murder were setting up, and if you had, like, I had listened to Black Dahlia Murder before, and we just thought they were a black metal band, that they'd have corpse paint and all this stuff. So we were sitting Black Dahlia Murder set up, and it was like, you know, a chubby dude with a trucker cap and, you know, like a polo shirt, you know, setting up, and then he started the most awesome friggin' scream growl that, you know, as we all know, as Black Dahlia Murder is known for. But anyway, that's aside. So I continued going to As Lay Dying shows. I love the band, but, you know, in a year or so, I kind of started to transition from metalcore to more new wave of American heavy metal, Lamb of God, Shadows Fall, that stuff. And I got really into Chimera, you know, a little heavier stuff. Then, you know, eventually I went into Morbid Angel, and the rest is history. But whenever, even though I was transitioning away from As Lay Dying, my roommate at the time and drummer in our band, as I mentioned in previous videos, didn't really play songs, it was just kind of riffs, but I still had a drummer. He was really getting into As Lay Dying. He really loved the catchiness and as the band evolved over time. And he was a web designer, so we hatched the scheme. We hatched the scheme that we would contact As Lay Dying and say, "Hey, Tim, you know, we'll help you out with the web hosting. You know, if maybe, you know, if you ever come in our area, we can hang out sometime." You know, it wasn't the way it happened. It was less sleazy than that, I promise. But we did. Well, my friend and drummer, my sister, worked with As Lay Dying on their website, and sure enough, we actually, at this time, years later, we were living in Maryland, and As Lay Dying came to Philadelphia. After the concert, Tim, you know, was like, "Hey man, what's up?" Blah, blah, blah. You know, me, I'm like, "I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy." Every rock star I've ever met. But Tim was so nice. He took us, invited us on the tour bus. You know, I was just like looking around, you know, seeing, you know, all my heroes of this bus, and Tim was so nice, and he tried talking to me, but I was just like so nervous. But yeah, Tim was always really great. So were the other people in the band, and yeah. And so as the years went by, I moved away. But my drummer actually threw a concert, put together a concert overseas for As Lay Dying and all this stuff. And then 2012, weird stuff started happening. As Lay Dying released an album, and then it had lyrics on it that were a bit darker bit more anti-religious, which As I Lay Dying has always been labeled a Christian band, not because of the lyrics, but because the members had always kind of that philosophy. And the new that album kind of made people wonder about things. And Tim's response was always, "Oh, I'm transitioning my belief systems." And then Tim released the Austrian Death Machine, which we all liked. It was really cool, really funny. But we knew he was getting really into bodybuilding and stuff. It was just kind of weird. And then he started talking about doing a death metal project, an anti-Christian death metal project. And then he divorced his wife and said he didn't believe in God anymore. He just got really weird really quick. And we were all like, what the heck is going on? And then the next thing you know, I'm reading a headline that Tim Limbesis of As I Lay Dying, lead singer, was arrested for trying to hire an undercover police officer to have his wife killed. And we were like, what the heck is going on? He denied it at first, but was later found guilty. And then it happened slowly, but at the same time it seemed like it happened so fast because we didn't, it seems so unbelievable, especially coming from a guy who had such, core Christian values for such a long time. Not that Christians can be good, we don't know that's not necessarily the truth, but it's just weird. And then after he went in jail for a long time, he was like throwing blame, it seemed like, at everybody. And there was a immediate fracture in the other band members in interviews. No one was happy with Tim, and he was just like, a lot of embarrassing things came out about his health. And then we all kind of just moved on. I was happy listening to the other bands I was into, and I always assumed that Tim would, whenever he got out, would just move off to a cabin somewhere and would never hear anything. But then he was released, and immediately he seemed very different. And immediately he seemed very apologetic, and he was open to criticism. And the band released some really powerful videos of discussions they were having, and it was very emotional. For me, I was just angry. I just didn't really care. I just this guy did such a horrible thing. What if his kids had been in the car and some hitman cut the brake line, they all died. I mean, just such horrible things could have happened. Thankfully, nothing did happen. But but it's just such a horrible thing that it's hard to just forgive it right off the bat. But like I said, these videos are very emotional. The other band members were kind of saying things that I felt. And after the album was released, I really started to kind of look into it a little bit more offhand, not intentionally, but just I'd see little things here and there. And the other band members seemed really able to forgive, and I was like, okay, maybe I should just give this a try. So, I followed the band, and the statements came out, and they seemed very apologetic. And I've chosen to be optimistic that Tim has changed, that he was under some kind of temporary insanity when all this went down, and we'll never know exactly what happened. But I've chosen to forgive, mainly because he's so apologetic and takes responsibility. That is so important to me. I in my life have done some bad things, what if one day I was driving erratically and I accidentally hit somebody? I would be like an evil murderer person, even though I'm not an evil murderer person. I would hope that someone could forgive me in that circumstance. Thank God it's never happened. But I've thought about this a lot, and I think with Tim, I'm able to forgive to a point. I'm watching. I hope that one day he can continue to try to make up for what happened. And because he never actually did anything is a big part of what, because nothing actually happened is a big part of the forgiveness. Because, it's weird because I don't know so much about this. Roman Polanski, his movies, specifically The Pianist, and one of my all-time favorite movies, The Ninth Gate with Johnny Depp, have had such a dramatic impact on my life. Obviously I watched those movies before I knew that he raped a little girl, even though he wasn't convicted, I don't think. It was kind of weird, the trial, but he never served time and he never seemed very apologetic. So it's like, do I still, I can't go back and not watch those movies, but I don't know, it's just such a weird thing. I think as long as I don't know. I don't really know exactly where I wanted to go with this video. I was hoping to maybe start a discussion. What people think. Like I said, because Tim was apologetic, because the band, the people who know him the most, was able to forgive him when they were all really upset, as much as the rest of us. And then, they were able to forgive him, and I'm able to move along. And this album is so good. It's such an amazing album. It really is. I think. It's my favorite Eyes Lit Dying album, easy. And I've listened to them all, and I have to say it's probably their best album. Period. So I gave the Roman Polanski, and that one, I don't know. Thankfully, I don't know. I don't watch his movies anymore, so I don't know. But Bard or Burzum, that was easy for me because I don't like Burzum. I think the music's kind of lazy to me. Compared to a lot of amazing black metal coming out of Norway. Enslaved, friggin' Immortal, and Dark Throne. It's so much, such amazing music. Burzum just sucks. Compared. That's my personal opinion. But he served his time, just like Tim. And so I could forgive, because he was a little kid when all that happened, but he's a jerk. He may say he's sorry, but he's like a rotten scumbag human being. And so it's just easy to not forgive him. And Metal Sucks website, I don't really read too much, but they said that once you do something horrible like that, you can't be forgiven. I don't know. There's an article that they wrote on it, and I didn't really understand their argument, but they said you can be forgiven, but if it's bad enough, you can't be forgiven. I don't know. So, let me summarize this rambling video. I believe unlike most of the people in the Me Too movement, who will never be held accountable for what they did, these big Hollywood people, these rich people, they may have to go retire in their mansion in the Mediterranean, where they can, have their underage, prostitutes and just live out the rest of their days. They won't ever really face any punishment for what they went through, what they did. If you were punished, you went to jail, or if you tried to make amends and be apologetic and be regretful for what you did, I think there is a path to forgiveness, no matter, unless you did something over and over again. That's horrible. But if you just did something and this is tough, but I think if you are apologetic, you can be forgiven. I don't know. I didn't really know where I was going with this video, but I just needed to make it. I just needed to come out and have this long rambling video. But anyway, tell me what you think. Put it in the comments below. I have an As I Lay Dying cover that's coming this weekend. And yeah, so tell me what you think. I mean, a lot of people say, oh, I don't like the music, so I don't even care. But if you did like As I Lay Dying, what did you think? Are you able to forget? I don't know. Anyway, see you guys later.